in a story that feels straight out of a gritty sci-fi movie, a police department, which just so happens to be in my motherland of the UK, is testing an AI-powered system to work on cold cases. So Avon and Somerset Police Department in the UK, southwest of UK, are using this application to work on some cold cases. So here's what they're doing. It's a test, right? So here's the first thing about this. The app's called Soze. If you kind of recognize that, I'm pretty sure, though I couldn't confirm it, that it's actually named after the Usual Suspects character Kaiser Soze. It's spelt the same way. It has the same umlaut on the O.
People have
so I'm guessing, because there's no other meaning for that word. Well, there is a meaning, but it doesn't make any context. This has context. Like, if you know Usual Suspects, like Kaiser Soze is a character in that. So it makes sense for this to be called that, I guess. So I was like, wow, okay, cool name. I like that. I do like that. It is an Australian-based application developer called Acodis, I think is the name.
Isn't that where you guys sent all your criminals to begin with? I mean,
maybe there's a tie.
An island.
Getting scammed.
Maybe there's a tie here. Acodis, actually, by the way, also, I thought I recognized this name somewhere, and it's because they're one of the partners with Mercedes F1 team. And I'd seen their branding on the Mercedes car. They do something to do with sustainability and data analytics for the Mercedes F1 team. I was like, oh, that's interesting. So they're in plenty of buckets. They're not just in criminal AI here, whatever you want to call this, criminal analysis of AI. But what they do is, if we go to their website here, those that are viewing, you can see here some of the strengths that they list of this. Basically, it takes an entire like digital footprint for somebody and analyzes it. Right? That's its
not
intent
scary
here.
at all.
Not scary at all, including things like video footage, financial transactions, call charge records, social media, emails, images, mobile phones, computer hard drives, and documents. Basically anything. Your entire digital footprint, this thing can pull in and analyze.
I was like, which country is going to go to dystopian future first? I thought it was going to be us, but you know what? You might win. You might win there.
England's going to win that one.
Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah,
I think maybe.
Even China is like taking notes, like, wow. They're like, we're embracing it here. Like, oh my goodness.
Bold move there, England.
Yeah, they're like,
let's see how it works out for them.
So here's the thing. Here's the thing that they said they did with this already in this test, right? They said that they gave it a whole bunch of, they gave it 27 complex cold cases as a test, and it took 30 hours to ingest and analyze all of that data. They've said that same analyze and data ingestion would have taken 81 human years of work to do the same amount of analyzation or whatever. So, and Bobby, you'll like this, by the way. Side note, it's also a cloud solution built on Azure.
Of course.
Pretty cool stuff. So the tech stack's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So let me ask this question. Are the politicians excluded from this data collection?
Absolutely.
Like, for instance, like, is it open to like collect data on everybody, or do they have some sort of exclusion clause?
This is a good point. This is my first. So I have a series of questions I'm going to ask you guys about this. So this is actually my first question. What do you think about the data rights and the security in this app? Where do you think this data comes from? And does it suck up everything?
I was going to quickly add to that. I like how UK leads the way of like the internet privacy and how they have these things to protect you from the corporations. But then
I think the EU does, but don't forget the UK isn't in the EU anymore.
Right. Never mind. You're right. I completely forgot.
I think if the UK was still in the EU, they wouldn't even be testing this.
Dude,
right,
they're totally probably like, oh man, yeah. They're definitely like, wasn't that movie V for the Vendetta, which like basically corrupt? And it's like, when is that? When are they creating that superhuman soldier to like free the people?
Several
from
movies
this
have blown up
corruption?
Parliament. So
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think they're really trying hard to like make it a reality. It looks like.
So wait. So this is an Australian company. Where do you think all this data must come? Well, I'm guessing. Well, so they're feeding it this. So that they're feeding it 27 complex cases of data, right? I'm guessing though it's also not just. It can't just be data collected for the cases, right? Or maybe it is, but maybe they have some other data that they're also matching it against or something.
I assumed it was just data from like the case file.
I'm going to say that they're collecting like not just data from the case file, but they're collecting like, you could call like avatar data, like data on that person, and then see the correlation, like, because there was a study somewhere and I like can't remember where it is, but where they were trying to, based on your preferences, shopping and the things you're buying, how you're living your life, try to figure out how likely are you to commit a crime. And so I think what they're doing is they're literally collecting all the data, and then they're trying to see how likely someone is to commit the crime. And then from the other side, they're trying to see like, what can we throw at them, to put them.
Thankfully that failed, which does lead me to my next question.
Which is crazy.
It is crazy they even tried it. Does any bias in the training data bother you for this? Because that's what happened with that. The bias in the training data was the issue.
So here's the thing I'm going to say, let's say if I lived in UK and was a normal citizen, if I put my name in the system, I'm sure it comes up and you're going to have in-depth, detailed data on me. Take any name of any politician. God, I will bet my life, living in US, that it's not being indexed. Because no, we live beyond the law. We make the law, we make these systems, but we don't participate in them systems.
Just to be clear, everybody, this is Paul's conspiracy theory.
Yeah, it's a conspiracy theory. That's definitely not what's happening. Are you kidding me? Why would anybody do that? That makes zero sense. Why would you have this population of the few?
All of a sudden, we notice next week. I look at the stats for the podcast, and all of a sudden we have no listeners in the UK. I'm like, what happened?
That. Listen, not even that.
We just got
I think I won't be here. I think it'll be man arrested in US conspiring against UK. I didn't do anything. I just said that.
I swear,
I just said this should be even. Everybody should be. I think whatever. Because that's just definitely biased.
So
sure.
Depending on what they're doing, they're probably depending on how old these cases are. If they're cold cases, if they have cell phone data, they're ingesting that. So let's say if someone's killed on, I don't know, Baker Street over there in front of Sherlock Holmes' house. They just look at cell phone data and see who was there.
Right.
And then those are our suspects that we know of. And so
do you think it's that wide then? Yeah, but do you think it's that wide as to it's who was there? So they have all the cell phone records for everybody that was
they have
there?
100% the whole cell phone.
And what if you don't have your cell phone on you when you were there?
I know. That's
you don't get included in the
Then they take traffic cams, which they've had for years, and then they try to face match everyone that was around that area.
This is what I'm wondering. I'm wondering if this system does that, or whether it just takes, as Sarah predict, or is suggesting, that it just takes the case records. So if it's already a part of the case record, then it can take it and it can try and find patterns. Or is it wider and it can take everything and it can look at all cameras and all cell phones? And they haven't really said.
Yeah. Let's take a guess. If they can, would they do it or not? Of course they would do it. It only makes sense. It's if we have this power, because the idea, it seems to me, it's they want to create a system where people are even afraid to speak their mind. In that movie I saw, 1984 or whatever, that other movie. Not really happening now, but I'm just saying, if you had a system of surveillance that, so here, just an anecdotal example, you see, so many folks, when they talk stuff on Twitter, they could get in trouble, and because the stuff you say does matter. I'm not saying that people shouldn't speak their mind, but I think it's when I go to my girlfriend's parents' house, I'm not gonna act wild. I'm gonna be responsible and presentable and talk about things that they want to talk about, right? I wouldn't be let's get drunk, and so you kind of police yourself in a sense. And so I'm thinking, if you have this type of society where everything you do is being indexed and visualized, it's do you just act a way in public that's totally different from what you are? And basically you have this act you put on.
But I think ultimately there's more than that though, Paul. You've got to forget your digital footprint would give you away, because your digital footprint also includes things that happen in private.
Right.
Well, right. And but that's the thing that I'm saying is that wouldn't that type of system train people to literally just be these avatars in public, because everything is watched. And back at home, people going to be very I mean, they're going to be afraid everywhere. I remember when I lived in communist Russia and I left, I'm half Ukrainian, half Russian, for those people are wondering. And I went back 7 years ago. I still had people from the old Soviet Union who lived on the communists afraid to speak in public. So I remember one elderly lady, she wanted to ask me a question about what it's like living in America. She literally waited till we were hiding in the closet to ask me that, because there's that fear. Yeah. And if you kind of have technologies where people are afraid to even speak publicly, and it could not even be so the point I have with this, maybe right now saying I hate donuts is fine. but somebody decides, you know what, hating donuts is wrong. You shouldn't say it. And then like now, like who decides that? But now like you say, I love donuts and you get in trouble. And so like the issue I have with like any system like that is that whoever controls that technology, they're going to be biased to use it against others, but they're not going to use it on themselves. There's just been the human nature, like, you know, of how life is.
So here's a question that you'll probably like, Sarah. What do you think? How do you think like the would AI analysis meet like a legal standard?
So this is exactly what I was going to speak to. So
okay.
I think it wouldn't, and I don't think that it would have the ability to capture the nuance in some of the evidence. So I have an example of Lori Daybell or Valo Daybell and Chad Daybell. They killed Lori's kids and Chad's wife in Idaho, right? Both convicted, so I can say they killed them. And there was 8 hours a day of recorded jail phone calls between the two of them.
Wow.
And the officers that had to listen to 8 hours of phone calls a day, like, this was painful. But a lot of times they were speaking in code. And if you're speaking in code, I don't think the AI would pick that up. You know, they would be like, yeah.
I wonder. I think it might
I think
do a
it'll
good job of that.
It'll be like, I think you're speaking in code.
Yeah,
that's pretty wild. Like it's AI, like it's really good at finding patterns. Like that's one thing that it's like really good at. And you know,
and if you told the AI like prompt, say, hey, I think they're speaking in code. What do you think they could be saying? You know, like this and stuff like that. So the code could come back. But I think it gets further than that. It's number one, if you have a crime scene, you may or may not have DNA evidence. And we're seeing DNA databases right now being used to solve crimes. But they're already partner with phone companies to get all the phone records. They already have the bank records. When's McDonald's saying, okay, for every cup, we're just going to register that DNA in here and try to tack it to somebody?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So like, and then they have DNA records on every single person in the UK. Then it'd be pretty easy to like,
match somebody real quick.
Yeah, match them up. And then so, while what your question is right, Kevin, could it prove it? No, but it could probably identify a person of interest, and then they would go out and find them.
Right, and I think that's the point, right? But then would it hold up to legal like scrutiny? Is my question. Like, let's say, because a lot of times what can happen is, let's say that you do like in the US, you have like a search right of something, but you don't have the correct like search warrant or something.
Fourth Amendment.
That evidence becomes like inadmissible, right? You can't use it.
Yeah,
right. So I'm wondering if there's something similar here with AI. Like if AI points out this thing, would the defendant show up to court and be like, well, it's AI. Here's how an LLM works. It just predicts words. You can't use that as evidence against me. You didn't have the right to get that search warrant because you didn't have the initial evidence to do the thing to find the thing.
But how many people are going to be that smart? Like, I think like it might be like two.
I wouldn't. I'm not that smart.
Right. That's what I'm saying. But I'm saying that maybe they're going for like two-prong approach. One is making a system that does all these things, accurately captures all the information that does this, but also just talking about the system that they're building. Like I said, like when I was growing up, like my grandmother, like she would beat me if I did anything wrong in Ukraine. So whenever I was like around her, I was on my best behavior because I knew that she's always watching. And if she isn't, she'll probably know. And so I behave differently, which is fine. I get it. But like, imagine that's like, a country system where that's basically a grandma that's watching over you, that's going to police you for you just thinking the wrong thing. So like the issue I have with that is going from like wrong think where you didn't act on something versus actually committing the action, right? Because like even Dalai Lama in one of his books, he's like, I had a thought where I killed my parents. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, but he never acted on it. So the issue I have with this is like, where's the line? Is it you thought something and you got in trouble because you collected all this data? Or are they going to basically, you committed the crime and they caught you, and now they just need that evidence to take it over
I think
line.
that's it. That's what they're using this for. Yes. They're trying to say, let's say I've got this case and I have all this evidence and we never solved it. So we give all of this evidence to the AI and we say, hey, you see any patterns here? And like we said, AI is good at recognizing patterns. So maybe it does see a pattern. It says, well, actually, yeah, your suspect B here was actually in the vicinity and there's this tying him and this tying him. Oh, that was that email that he sent that said this word that also ties into this telephone message that no human could ever put together because there's 7,000 like hours of telephone conversations.
Right.
But I think
go ahead.
I was gonna say I agree with like that like system if there was still this huge emphasis on physical evidence gathered. So you don't go on.
I think there still has to be.
Yeah,
yes.
right. And then like I don't have a problem. It's like
in America there is.
Right.
I think in most countries.
No, not in most.
We've got a jury of our peers.
I think in most.
Fourth Amendment, like there's a lot of things we have that don't exist. I mean, it's definitely more government sided than it is person sided in the U.S. for sure. But I do think that the thing it runs into is the crimes. A lot of times we say, "Oh, it's a murder. We should use this to solve murders," but then the governments, these evil governments, invent other crimes to get after their political rivals. And that's the problem. Like they can create a crime and then make sure you violate it. And that's the thing that I think freedom of speech and those kind of things have to still be protected in this kind of stuff. You know, I don't know. Should every bank transaction you make be recorded and every phone call you recorded, every email you recorded?
They already are.
Yeah,
I know.
They are in this country. Literally, they can look at them
they
right
are.
now.
Yeah, that's what Charles Snowden
Don't forget,
told us.
there's
Yeah,
exactly.
sure.
Well, Edward Snowden. Yeah. Well, and don't forget that ended up being true. Don't forget they put that thing. Remember the thing about $10,000 international monetary transactions for the U.S.
The Bank Secrecy Act, 1970.
Right. Well, there's something that a lot of people don't realize that every transaction above $600 gets reported.
Yeah, and then they look for structured payments inside of banks too. So
exactly. So it's all going out there anyway. It's kind of crazy.
So as long as all of the data that's fed into the AI is legally obtained, then I think what the AI spits out that can point them in the right direction would be admissible. Like, this is how we got from point A to point B, and now here is all the evidence that proves point B. Like, and we got all of point A legally. Like, so we're not, data mining illegal information or whatever.
I think tying the dots together is going to be the thing, isn't it? If that's the case and that's what it does, I actually like this.
Yeah.
So like I said, if it's used responsibly and then at the end of the day, they're going on like hard fact proofs rather like the hearsay of the AI system. The question I was going to ask, how's that going to work against like defense lawyers? Are they going to have their own AI system that's going to do like counterpoints and create,
100%.
which is like insane,
yeah.
which is insane. It's like, what is this world coming to? So I'd
be interested to see like some of the outputs of this. If they could give us an example of a case, we took this cold case.
Sure.
And here's like, if it goes all the way through and they do something with it, I would love to see like a story on this that says, oh yeah, we used the AI, it did this, it told us these points, something we hadn't seen before, and we brought in so-and-so and he confessed or something, that would be nuts.
And I could see, like, this was manually done, but I could see where an AI would be able to bring it from point A to point B. And that's, I don't know if you heard about the University of Idaho 4 students that were murdered. So the person accused of killing them has not been convicted, Brian Koberger. How they got to him was crazy. Like, so they took like Ring cameras from all over the place, was looking for a white sedan, and they traced the white sedan going from the house that had happened through all these like Ring cameras and security cameras back to the University of Washington. And then at the University of Washington pulled all of the people who had that car that kind of matches that description, and then went from that car to narrowing it down to this one person. And then they had some DNA at the crime scene. They went to, they basically followed him back to his house in like Pennsylvania, and took the trash from the house in Pennsylvania, found some DNA on the trash, and matched the DNA to like the person whose DNA was at the house is the son of this person that they have the DNA
and I'm
for.
sure that tracking him back was hundreds and hundreds of man hours.
Right.
Whereas you're right. I think this is a case where AI probably could have done that.
Exactly.
In way less.
Yeah.
In way less time. Yeah.
They had cell phone data too, didn't they? Didn't they have some kind of cell phone?
Well, yeah, but they couldn't get the cell phone data until they had him. Like once they had him and had his phone number, then they were able to pull the phone records for him. But to get to him, it was that car and tracing it back.
Interesting.
As they
Yeah,
keep
like
them, I
hundreds
was
of
going to
hours.
say, I'm just going to give them a tip. Whenever they implement this system, the report that they give should have a name, and they should call it Minority Report.
Yeah. Here's
your
the
minority
minority
report.
report for this case. Yeah.
Yeah, for this
Person of
case.
interest. You've
Person
seen
of
that one?
interest. Yeah, exactly.
I love it.
I would not be shocked if we don't see this in the US too. I really wouldn't be. I don't think it like breaks any like laws or norms that I can see. I
Fourth
think
Amendment,
we
it
would
does.
I don't think it does.
But
Well,
I was going to say,
if the stuff you put into it is obtained through the Fourth Amendment, like I don't see how it would break it.
I was
Yeah.
going to say, like, the way US functions, and this is me like moving to US from a communist country. It's like they're like, oh, we'll never have it. They have it. They just don't talk about it. It's
Well,
like that's
yeah,
how it
we
works.
have
Like,
it.
yeah, we're just not going to talk about. Yeah. It's
They're
like we're
already
not gonna,
using it.
Yeah, we already got this. We are
How
ahead
did
of
they
time. Just don't
find?
make it
How
weird.
did they trace that car back? They already used it.
Well, remember, for the longest time, we weren't going to talk about the DNA from Ancestry.com. Remember that being a thing? Like, we weren't talking about that. Like, how'd they catch that guy? Remember that? I think it was the BTK guy or whatever, right? Did they catch him through like one of the Ancestry things through somebody else's DNA? But it was like, but they didn't mention it until like something big happened. It's like, oh yeah, we've been using that for years.
Yeah.
They've got DNA databases. Yeah. It's just,
Yeah. It's
shouldn't.
cool. It's cool. Don't worry about it.
Soze, whisper through the wires, cold case files, AI eyes. Soze, sifting through the lies, decades fade, truth survives. Soze, old crimes locked in the past, files too thick, the shadows cast. Now a machine digs in fast, secrets that we thought would last. Soze, whisper through the wires, cold case files, AI eyes. Soze, sifting through the lies, decades fade, truth survives. Trust what it sees when it's fed by our own disease. Sifting data through the haze, who writes the laws we obey? Soze, whisper through